Alright, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, Connor on Chain. So, in this video, guys, I want to talk about just nothing specific when it comes down to altcoins, but I just want to have a conversation with the overall market and sentiment right now because, it is still like the market is trending sideways. Not too much is happening aside from right now we got the bonk eco, starting to get a lot of traction because of, pump fund not having anything, really incentivizing users. They're just taking money, sucking it out of the market right into the founders' pockets, shit like that. But the bonk eco has been very strong because, their infra is actually, going back into tokens, back into holders. Not holders, but going back into their ecosystem nonetheless. It's got some bullish factors, but bottom line, what we're seeing again and again and again, guys, is continued rotation in this market. And I think it is just in many people in this market, especially people that are full out degenning day to day. It's like sometimes you can't stop the degeneracy in the market. And it's a lot of people that are just rotating. It's like I'm looking at many different coins, across different chains. It's not even just Solana, it's kind of everything. It's just a lot of rotation because people, I feel like, do not want to be holding onto coins for a very long time. And again, mainly it is on Sol at the moment because the amount of rotation on Solana, it's just kind of the nature of the chain. There's a low fees because of speed. It's just been normalized. The people just do not want to hold anything for a while. But yeah, so in this video, what I want to talk about mainly, though, kind of still what I'm doing, what I'm focusing on. And then I want to get into, again, kind of my thesis going forward on, again, just kind of what I'm doing in the market in regards to altcoins and how I'm holding things and what I'm waiting for. So, I kind of say this, man, like I say it very often, but one of the biggest things I'm waiting for is just a true spike of liquidity and movements in the market to actually hit into majors, mainly into Ethereum. I think Ethereum having some sort of move, granted, it would going into price discovery well above its previous all-time high is what everyone wants, right? But I think for ETH to see a run, well into even if it's back up to 4K, maybe 45, 5K, 6, 7K, getting liquidity rotating into ETH, into majors, is going to be one of the first things that we look for. And for me personally, what I'm waiting for to even look to start selling any of my bags. I don't care if it's projects on Sol, projects on Base, ETH, wherever I'm buying and holding. Because usually in the market, when you got an altcoin like ETH, which basically has run the entire alt season in the past, when it hasn't really done too much in this cycle yet, but yet the main coin, the main character of the cycle, Bitcoin, has been printing new highs, continuously holding. It's almost like altcoins have not had that major move yet as far as getting moves across the board like we've seen in the past. Um, but again, I want to talk to you guys about what I'm doing because, like I said, it's important that I think sticking to conviction, even through the toughest times in the market, through all of this rotation, guys, is so fucking important. It's like if you guys have seen my channel for a while, you guys know that, MOG is one of my biggest convictions. It has been since 2023, even through going up, going all the way down. This thing has not fully been priced in yet. I think, this is not trying to bullpost MOG or any specific coin at all. But, it's like there's many reasons why I like to have conviction in a coin. You have long-term, a long-term thesis or theses, however you say that, built out for certain coins, and sometimes it takes months or even like a year and a half to play out. It's not something that every time is just going to play out within a week. But something like MOG, it's like I've said, is Ethereum, I think, needs to start moving before anything. Obviously, that I think in turn will also help with Sol. Then we got Sol ETFs. I think there's a lot lining up for these majors to make a greater move across the board over the next few months. But it's predicting and thinking, okay, well, once that actually happens for these, what else is going to run with it? What is going to run with Sol? What is going to run with Ethereum? What is going to run on Base? And something like Mog, I think, is still one of the best Ethereum beta plays that you can allocate to. It is a top meme coin. The community hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there, still consistent. Um, and again, meme coins, I just like meme coins because regardless of what people think, they're always the coins that end up bouncing back the hardest. I mean, you can just see the charts when things start to flip bullish again. It's just you can't escape it. That's why I really like Mog. And it's like BitTensor is another coin that I really like. Even though its underlying ecosystem I think is incredibly undervalued, but same thing. As we're kind of waiting for altcoins to start moving more. Waiting for, I do think at some point too, it's going to be similar to ETH. I think Tau or BitTensor eventually will start to get more of a bid. And this is what I want to get into in a minute, is like how that would even happen, or maybe some sort of reason why that would happen, or some reasons why. But it's like even for the underlying ecosystem, like I like a lot of subnets. Like I think if those subnets are even on a different chain or something like that, some of them would be probably valued a lot higher than they are right now because of the complexity, the difficulty in actually being able to buy and sell them. I really think a lot of those subnets, if they were on a different chain or something and very easily able to buy, they would be a lot different in valuation. But nonetheless, same thing with BitTensor. If Ethereum starts moving, it's probably going to bring up a lot of AI coins. It's going to bring up RWA coins. It'll revive a bunch of coins that have been dead for a while, a bunch of narratives, that have been dead. But again, I don't know. It legitimately starts with ETH moving. But something I laid out in one of my other videos and on Twitter a while ago was that some of my main thoughts behind this, though, and how it could happen, is because within stocks right now, we're seeing, this huge race for a lot of companies to accumulate Bitcoin, right? Lots of different companies are trying to accumulate as much as they can, while Bitcoin, in many ways, many people might think it's too expensive, but I guess to a lot of institutions and stuff, they just need to get their hands on a piece of Bitcoin before it gets way too out of reach. And I think a lot of institutions are thinking very long term. So it's like very slowly they've been stacking Bitcoin, and it's becoming like a supply shock almost. And I feel like very similar things may happen for altcoins like Ethereum, especially if we got people that eventually are going to start stacking onto ETH like that. Major institutions bidding, throwing their capital in. I think a lot of the stocks that end up accumulating Ethereum or accumulating these altcoins over time, I think over the next few months, especially as Bitcoin rises, that is going to almost start like a stock season or an alt season for stocks. We've already seen it happening a little bit, but I think that might happen on a way larger scale, and it's going to be companies legitimately jumping probably way heavier into these majors than we probably expect. Because again, once Bitcoin starts printing in price discovery, again, granted it does at some point, if it does, right? It's going to be a lot of demand for Bitcoin, but once that finally slows down, it's probably going to switch into altcoins, coins that are cheaper or doing something different than Bitcoin, more innovative, right? And I think that's going to accelerate a lot of altcoins to get more bids because institutions are going to be buying up ETH or, again, any altcoin, to allocate to their treasury. Or even the other reason is there's going to be stocks that maybe they're not buying up supply of altcoins, but they're actually building legitimate infrastructure. And those stocks themselves, if they have a company publicly traded, are probably going to rip until eventually people realize, you could just buy the underlying altcoins. And I think it's just going to go hand in hand where A lot of these majors are going to start running and continuing to run. But at the same time, also most of these majors, they have ecosystems underneath them. So it's like, for example, we could see a lot of institutional bids within a lot of these coins, a lot of these majors that actually bring the price up a little bit more. Versus like the classic just liquidity rotation of Bitcoin, Bitcoin holders selling and rotating into ETH. It could just be a lot of institutions that also are bidding price like crazy because maybe they're getting FOMO and they want to allocate to, ETH when it's cheap, when Bitcoin's way too high, right? It could be a mix of so many things. But I think there's going to be a lot of demand and almost FOMO for institutions to grab onto really good altcoins while they're still cheap at some point, which could drive majors up a lot and in turn obviously drive the companies up that are publicly traded. And in turn, what is that going to do is pump every single coin within different ecosystems, because eventually I think that also could drive even more of an influx of retail back into the market to actually jump into the hottest narratives within each ecosystem. And for example, we got Ethereum. I think on a ETH specifically, anything AI related, it will probably explode. Doesn't matter what it is. If you needed one thing, ETH, and then obviously I still think like DeFi, anything stablecoin, RWA, that is going to be probably where that narrative kind of lives. So anything like that related on ETH will probably do well. On Solana, anything meme coin related, 100%. If you're on Sol, I'd literally recommend jumping into some of the top memes. Don't jump into a coin that's just hyped today because it's probably going to go down after a while if we don't have a huge run anytime soon. But it's like allocate to some very strong coins. It's like something as simple as like, Giga or Popcat. Even coins that have been here for a while that have, ran up, they have a strong community. They have listings, things like that. And it's like even for other majors, you got BitTensor, which, I see a lot of people specifically on my timeline. It's like most people are, crashing out on the fact that BitTensor's ecosystem and subnets have been down only for a long time. And it's like, I totally understand. It's tough to see most coins just going down only for so long. But at the same time, again, we have not seen like a full massive trajectory of risk on money just being thrown into altcoins like we've seen in the past. It's like Bitcoin, yeah. BitTensor, just look at this chart, guys. Subnets launched, I think, somewhere around here. I don't know if it was January, February. BitTensor has been ranging in this box. But usually, if you guys have ever been in the market for a long time, what takes an ecosystem to blow up? Usually it is the underlying asset making an absolute run for it. Not just having it chop, doing absolutely nothing for 3 months. Also on top, while sentiment is absolutely down bad, you can't expect most ecosystems in the market to do anything right now. It's just not the time. Yes, it could be time to allocate into things because the attention is at legitimate zero. But and sentiment is just down bad. Because that's when you'd want to add. You don't want to be adding when shit is God candling, if and when it happens, in like 5 months from now, 4 months, 3 months from now, right? Or whatever, a month from now, I don't know. But again, you can't expect just every coin in the market to just end up moving. There's got to be a lot of shit that happens first. And I'm talking about specifically, though, if you're allocating into different chains, different ecos, anything random. It's like if you're on Solana, Solana memes have most of the liquidity in the market anyways. So yeah, that's why there's so much rotation, and that's why you see coins on Sol pumping up and down like crazy, because it's just legitimate capital just flowing back and forth. And obviously lots of people are still sidelined, which is fine at the same time, right? This market is crazy right now. But a lot of capital is just flowing in and out of coins because people are trying to catch pumps. But different ecosystems, they're going to bleed out. They're not going to do anything until there's a real catalyst to pump the shit out of the underlying asset. Because again, what is the best marketing in crypto? It is a coin god candling. I don't care what anyone tells you. Like, this is an attention market. And nothing sparks more attention in a ecosystem than the underlying asset absolutely fucking printing God candles. I don't care if it takes a week for these candles to fucking come out of nowhere after going sideways for a month, or if it just goes up only after a while. But something like BitTensor, it's like I look at it, if there's a coin that is going to run at some point, this would be probably the easiest bet, and it's like I'm personally not trading. I'm not in this. I mean, I am trading, but I'm not in this market with my conviction bags, to be buying here and selling up here. Like I do not care. I want to be riding this out for the entirety of this cycle, regardless of how far or high Big Tensor goes, or if by the end of the year and we come to the conclusion that maybe an alt season isn't happening, that would be an indicator for me to be like, all right, regardless of where price is, it could be time to actually get the fuck out of the market. But it's like I'm betting very long term on everything having some sort of move. Again, it's not going to be this 2021 up only season where you just pick a coin on CoinGecko and shit just fucking does a 20x out of nowhere. Like it's going to be very selective with what runs. But it's just there's going to be a time where, it's like we've seen in the past where it's like it is going to be a somewhat PvE time, which is player versus entity, meaning a lot easier for people to make money, just like in this general time where technically, yes, if this happened, like imagine this happened again, wherever the hell this is. Oh, I'm like, I think I could draw that. If we had this kind of dominance dump for a couple months, this is where the money comes from in the entire market. Or not the entire market, sorry, but as far as when altcoins want to run is when Bitcoin dominance is kind of dumping. Whether it's short term, long term. When we see this shit happen, and again, I don't know where this is going to top. I still think it has a little bit higher to go. But if we see a major dump across the board, altcoins are going to start flying. And from there, that is where the opportunity is going to actually begin. And that's where it's going to be a lot easier to be making money, because we know that when Bitcoin dominance is dumping, altcoins are in the spotlight. People are starting to ape. People are going more risk on. They're jumping into shit. They're not afraid, to be selling for a 5% gain, a 2% gain. Like, they want to be riding things out because, again, dominance is dumping. It's alt season. So it's like if and when we see that again, this is like, it's almost like the odds of you buying something and things going up increase like tenfold versus you trying to trade every single thing while Bitcoin dominance is trending sideways. Yes, it's been very selective, but that's why, because again, dominance is going up. Institutions, everyone is bidding Bitcoin right now. It's still Bitcoin season. And frankly, I've thought about it. It's like, I don't even know if and when there's going to be this disgusting rotation out of Bitcoin into altcoins, because a lot of people that are bidding Bitcoin, they're bidding it for a specific reason as a store of value, things like that. I guess if it does really God candle, yeah, everyone's going to be selling at some point. But, it's like a lot of people I feel like too are buying it now, even at these levels, for a long span of time. And it's not going to go much lower. Maybe by the end of the cycle, in a year and a half, it corrects to what, maybe minimum 50, 60K, I would say. Again, from a very long-term perspective, that's not that bad with how Bitcoin has been moving over many cycles. If you held for like 2 cycles, So I don't know. Bottom line, it's just been very interesting to see all of this stuff playing out and how much rotation has been happening. And honestly, how difficult it has been for a lot of people to hold coins in the market. And bottom line, what I am doing is still slowly adding into conviction plays, and still on and off, watching the trenches, watching different launches, because there are little pockets of time where, sometimes things end up running. We saw like a month ago, just in the last month, what did we see? We saw Gradient, which was an ETH project, have a huge run, which kind of sparked a little bit of attention and liquidity to flow into ETH mainnet new launches, where we only saw a few that actually ran and did pretty well. But that lasted for a few weeks. We saw Moonshot, I think, a week ago? Not even. Moonshot itself had a bunch of tokens within its little ecosystem. Those pumped, and most of them kind of dumped already. We got Bonk Eco, fucking a lot of coins running right now within that. It's like even what? A month ago we saw Base Chain. Base coins went fucking parabolic for like 2 or 3 weeks. Like money just continues to rotate in the market, but it's been very selective because the dominance just going up. And just not in a true state of PvE. And again, when I say PvE, I know some people might not know what that means. It just means when I say PvE, it means you can buy a coin and the likelihood of things actually just continuing to move, going up, the coins and chains when you're trading on them, it's just a lot easier because, you're not fighting against, you're not PvPing against 5 different people at, 10K in market cap trying to dump on each other like some shit. It's like you got money that is flowing into the market, which in turn is kind of jumping and pumping everything up. That's what kind of PvE means. And that's why you see that very often. If you are very early to a new chain or an ecosystem, and you know that you are literally like one of like 200 users or 1,000, 2,000 users, but then for some reason, all the capital on crypto Twitter, everyone in crypto starts watching that ecosystem and money starts flowing in. That is what PvE kind of means. It's like when you see that money just flowing right into an ecosystem or something very early on, like Virtual, for example, back in, late 2024. Same exact thing. It's like that's what PvE was. Virtual was PvE for like 3 months, meaning it was a lot of people just over like a month or two span, maybe even longer, over time finally decided to bridge over to base and start jumping into agents. That happening day after day, month after month is what makes shit pump within the crypto market. But when we have that on a more broad scale where if institutions are bidding and it's not just crypto Twitter degens or people in crypto jumping at each other, it gets PvE again when retail, mainly, the 20,000, 30, 40, 50K people that are in crypto every single hour, every day, the other millions of people that don't have exposure to crypto start aping into stuff. Again, like shit like that. That is where PvE season comes from. That is what altcoin season, that's where it comes from. I mean, that's just one aspect of it. There's a couple others, but, same thing. That's why Bitcoin's been running too. Massive institutional bids. Outside of the core small amount of people that were, very early to it and shit like that. So I don't know. Bottom line, I am allocating still consistently into conviction plays. And if you guys know from I think one of my last videos, Mask on Solana is one of my new favorite meme coins. I just think it is a top tier meme coin community. Mog is still OG meme. Top tier. Those are literally my 2 biggest meme holdings personally. I think Hyperliquid is good. BitTensor. And there's a bunch of other coins, but I mean overall too, Bitcoin's strength still looks really good. Like it wants to have another run here. But yeah, I'd say it's like I'm still just allocating to conviction because at some point I have a feeling we will see Ethereum at least attempts to reclaim its all-time high. And I look at it too, it's like I do hold a lot of ETH now. Maybe not that much, but I have some ETH. But I think bottom line, I think to not bet on Ethereum is kind of stupid because if you want, again, I say this every time, if you want an alt season to happen, we need that liquidity to flow into what? Ethereum. And when that liquidity flows into Ethereum for an alt season, what happens to ETH? ETH goes up or down? It goes up. If ETH goes up, every single coin in the market is going to be positively affected by that and probably pump like crazy. Even it'll probably bring up anything on Sol as well. If ETH starts doing 50% gains week after week, for a fact that it's going to bleed right into Sol and bleed into your microcap meme coins and shit like that. It's going to bleed into everything. ETH is king right now. It's like, I don't care what people are talking about. If ETH doesn't run, we do not have an alt season. Bottom line. And lately, too, I think there's just been a lot of bullish things going on for ETH. So, bottom line, pay attention to this. You literally could just look at one chart. If this goes up in the next 6 months, anything you buy is probably going to start running from a select handful of coins. Not just anything. Don't buy a fucking coin from 2021, that hasn't had a tweet from it in 6 months. Like, buy something with strength right now in the market. But if ETH does this, we're going to have some sort of run. If ETH does this, we're cooked. So, but again, I think factors are very much so aligning for ETH to bounce and at least attempt to run back up. So that's why I'm in this market still. That's what I want to see happen, and that's what I'm waiting for. So bottom line, guys, continue degenning if you want. Be very cautious right now. Do not be rotating your major conviction bags just to buy into new high-risk stuff. Continue to stack and hold onto your conviction bags, especially if they're high cap stuff. Just hold them, because the majority of where your gains are going to come from in the market, from my own experience, is when just the overall market eventually decides to have a major swing to the upside. Because again, I personally am not playing this market for a 5% gain, selling here, buying back on the dip, letting it bounce, selling here. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm swing trading from this general area over a span of months. It either does this or it does this. I win or I lose like this. That's how I'm playing this market. I'm not doing short term unless, again, we're talking about a new launch or it's something you're jumping in and out of in 2 days. But for conviction bags, this is how I'm playing it. So that's it. Stack conviction. Go touch grass, because I know it is ridiculous to fucking hold shit in this market sometimes. Even seeing mask, again, it's like I build conviction. I actually love this meme. The community, I just think, is nuts. But, it's been going down for like, a week now, week and a half, which is fine. Again, I have a 3 to 6 month time frame on this coin specifically. So, things like that. It's just build conviction, stack coins because of a thesis you have, and just be patient. But outside of that, guys, that is what I wanted to cover. That's kind of what I'm doing in the market, how I'm playing this market right now. Again, I just play this stuff from a very high time frame. But outside of that, I appreciate you all watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.